Hello from Sarah. Today I'm showing you a fantastic new Tunisian stitch. I've named it the Tunisian Tiles Stitch because it reminds me of the beautiful Moroccan tiles technique done in regular crochet. Though it uses basic Tunisian stitches such as the Tunisian Simple Stitch and the Tunisian Puff Stitch, this stitch pattern requires a bit of concentration because when worked flat, that is to say in rows, the beginning and end of each row change in a 4-row repetition. Also, the return pass is not the standard one for this stitch, and you need to pay a bit of attention there as well. Anyway, the Tunisian Tile Stitch really does produce an amazing texture, especially when worked with 2 or more colors, as here, so it is definitely worth all the trouble, so to speak. Let's begin! First of all, this stitch must be worked from a chain in multiples of 3 plus 2 stitches. Here I have started from a standard foundation row of 14 stitches, which counts for me as row number 1. As usual, remember I will leave all useful links of the techniques and stitches used in this video both in the description below and in the top right hand side of your screen. So let's proceed with row number 2. This is a special row and is not included in the rows repetition I told you about. You will work very simply in Tunisian Simple Stitch across. So first loop on the hook already counts as stitch number 1. Then go with the hook under the next vertical bar, this one from right to left. Yarn over, pull through and drop a loop. And this is the Tunisian Simple Stitch. Proceed like this across. Finishing, as always, with a so-called neat closing stitch, as I like to call it, which is a border stitch here, an end stitch. So you insert the hook under both the front vertical bar and the back bar of that last border stitch, yarn over, pull through and drop a final loop for the forward pass. As I said, as I anticipated, the return pass for this stitch is a special one. So in this case, what we need to do is we chain 1, then we yarn over and pull through 4 loops together. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then we chain 2, 1, 2, yarn over and pull through 4 loops together, chain 2, yarn over, pull through 4 loops together, chain 2, yarn over, pull through 4 loops together, 2 loops on the hook, we need to chain 2 once again, and then we need to yarn over and finish the return pass, but we will do it with our yarn in color B. So we will attach it here and complete the return pass by yarning over with my color B yarn and pulling through those last 2 loops on the hook. Okay, so now with color B, we will start our first row repetition for this stitch pattern. So we will So as you see with the return pass in previous row, we have created these tiny clusters of 3 stitches together. We will consider them as small shells. So what we do now is we will go with the hook under the small tiny back bar that keeps these stitches together here. On top of the first shell of stitches we encounter here, we insert the hook, yarn over, and drop a loop. Okay. Then we will make our first puff stitch. So if you see the spaces between the shells of stitches, here is the first one. So we will insert the hook there, like this, yarn over and drop a loop, then yarn over, insert the hook a second time, yarn over and pull through, then yarn over, insert the hook a third time, yarn over and pull through. And that's our first puff stitch completed. So I have gone with my hook 3 times inside the space between shells. Now I will drop my next loop from the top of this next shell here. Okay, then we will make another puff stitch here in this space. So just watch as I do it. The way I do it is the first time I insert the hook, I will not do a yarn over. Now I yarn over and drop my first loop, then I yarn over again, this time insert the hook, yarn over and pull through, yarn over, insert, yarn over and pull through. So 3 times in all. Now again we will draw a loop up from the next shell top, another space, another puff stitch here. So no yarn over, insert the hook once, yarn over, insert the hook twice, yarn over and pull, insert the hook 3 times, yarn over and pull up. Okay, then another loop from the top of the next shell, which is the final one of our row, and then we will finish with the usual neat closing stitch done in the chain of previous row below. Okay, and the return pass for this repetition is as follows. So chain 1, then yarn over and pull through 2 loops together, then yarn over and pull through the loop on the hook, the whole of the puff stitch, and the next loop that was taken from the top of the shell below, then chain 2, yarn over once again, go with the hook through both the first loop, the puff stitch, and the next loop, chain 2. Now pay attention, we will yarn over and pull through the first loop, the puff stitch, but not the loop taken from the first shell below, so that we end our return pass with 3 loops on the hook. Now we will yarn over and pull through 2, then we chain 2, and we will pull through those last 2 stitches, but with our first color that we left here attached, hanging. Repetition number 2, which will be done in color A. So we will consider again the shell of previous row below, this one. We will go with the hook on the top of that shell, insert the hook there, then we yarn over, pull through, then we yarn over again, pull through that loop and drop another loop once and twice. So insert the hook, yarn over, yarn over, pull through, and that's it. Then we will insert the hook on the top of that puff stitch here and drop a loop here. See that small back bar that keeps the puff stitch together? This is where you need to insert your hook. Okay, then again we will search for the top of the shell underneath, insert the hook there, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. So every time you insert the hook, you need to make this double movement. So insert the hook, yarn over and pull through. Stitch is not completed, so we yarn over again and pull through again. And now the stitch is completed. And then we drop a loop from the top of the next puff stitch. Once again, we go below, on top of the shell below, and drop 2 loops, as just explained. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2 times. Then from the top of the next shell, and here again, we will drop 2 loops, 1, 2, okay, and we will finish again as always with a neat closing stitch on that border stitch, and we make our return pass, which is done like this. So we chain 1, then we yarn over and pull through 2 loops together, then we yarn over and pull through 4 loops together, 1, 2, 3, 4, chain 2, yarn over and pull through 4, chain 2, yarn over and pull through 4, 3 loops on the hook, chain 2, yarn over and pull through 2, chain 1, and then you need to pull through those last 2 loops on the hook with our color B. And this is what we'll do there. See? Okay, so repetition number 3. So we will drop a loop from the first vertical bar we encounter, which is this one. This one here. Simple stitch. Then let's consider the spaces between clusters, between shells again, and make our puff stitches from there. So just like before, we go in the space between shells and make our puff stitches. 1, 2, 3, done. And just like before, we will pull up loops from the top of the shells created in previous return pass. Okay, followed by another puff stitch. 2, 3. Then top of shell. Then another puff stitch. Okay, top of shell. Another puff stitch here. Okay, finishing just like we began this repetition with a simple stitch done in that second to last vertical bar we have here. Simple stitch, and then we finish with a neat closing stitch. Okay, and the return pass for this repetition is we chain 1, then we yarn over and pull through 2, then we yarn over, and just like before, we pull through the first loop, the puff stitch, and the second loop, let's say, chain 2, yarn over and pull through all of this stuff, chain 2, yarn over and pull through all of this, chain 2, And pay attention now, because this is the last puff stitch we have created, or let's say the first of the forward pass. And in this case, we will pull through all of this exceptionally this one loop, the one we had drawn up from the first vertical bar, the simple stitch. So we yarn over and pull through the first loop, the puff stitch, and that's it. So 3 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through 2, chain 1, and now you will yarn over and pull through those last 2 loops with our color A. So you see what we have done here? The pattern is forming, and with this repetition we have created a puff stitch more than we did on this puff stitch repetition here. Okay, so let's proceed with the fourth row repetition for this stitch pattern. So once again we will begin with a Tunisian simple stitch drawn from that single and lonely vertical bar here. Okay, then we will draw up a loop from the top of the next puff stitch here. Then, just like before, we will proceed with our loops drawn up from the top of the shells below. 2 loops. So here is the top of our shell done with the return pass previously. Insert the hook, yarn over, draw up a loop, yarn over again, and that's the stitch complete. Once again, the same. Okay, and then the next loop will be drawn up from the top of the next puff stitch. So 2 below, like this, and 1 from the top of the next puff. Once again, 2 below, one from the top, and just like we began, we will finish with a simple stitch drawn up from that single vertical bar here. That's it, and a neat closing stitch down here. Okay, return pass for that last row repetition is done like this. Chain 1, yarn over and pull through 4 loops together, 1, 2, 3, 4 immediately. Then chain 2, yarn over and pull through 4, chain 2, yarn over and pull through 4, chain 2, yarn over and pull through 4, 2 loops on the hook, chain 2, and then pull through those last 2 loops with my color number 2, with my color B. Done. Okay, and now how do you proceed? You will proceed with the first row repetition. That is to say, you will begin again from the first row repetition and repeat all of the repetitions I've just shown you for the length you need and you desire. So the result, as you see, it's really gorgeous. I love it. As you've seen, it might be a little bit confusing or complicated to remember and memorize all the movements, the exact movements and procedures you need to do at the beginning and at the end of each row of each forward pass and for the return pass as well. And this is why, for example, I have written it down myself in order to be able to make a bigger project so as not to forget what I have to do row after row. But apart from that, I think it is really a beautiful stitch pattern. it remains to see how this stitch would look like when worked in the round. I bet it would be much easier because we don't have to do all the different start and endings of each row. We just work continuously, so I think it might be even simpler. So I will study how to do it, and then I will show you how to do it in a later video. But that's all for now. I really hope you liked this video. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye from me. Bye.